Have you been going around the internet looking for the ultimate baseball podcast? Well, you've just found it. On the Dugout Report, we'll cover not only the latest news for across Major League Baseball, but we'll also analyze and break down the hottest games, players, stats, and takes from every aspect of the game, including from on the field, in the dugout and clubhouse, from the front office, and so much more. As longtime White Sox broadcaster Ken the Hawk Harrelson would say, sit back, relax, and strap it down. This is the Dugout Report podcast with Andrew Caruso. Hello everyone, and a very happy Sunday to you, wherever you may be. This is episode 9 of the Dugout Report on this Sunday, July 10th, 2022. I am your host, Andrew Caruso. On this episode, we'll cover some of the top headlines, including the results of Phase 1 of the MLB All-Star Game voting, and who I think deserves to start at each position in each league. I'll also give an update on the key matchups to watch in the week ahead and the first half. Last week, to cap off the show, it's another social media segment where I'll read your thoughts on what teams you think will be the most active in the this deadline season. So stay tuned till the end to hear those thoughts. Before we jump into this week's content, I hope you're all doing well. It feels great to be back in front of the mic and producing content more consistently for y'all. Today's episode marks a return to the regular baseball news content that's been a part of this show since day one. On that note, I wanted to let you know that next week's episode will be a special episode where I'll spotlight each of the 7 inductees for the Baseball Hall of Fame class of 2022 in advance of the induction ceremony on July 24th. This means that the episode may be a bit shorter than usual, and there won't be any current news or social media segments. This is because I have a minor surgery scheduled for Tuesday the 12th, and it's just easier for me to do this first for that Sunday, so y'all have your weekly dose of content, and I can focus on my health and recovery. As for Sunday the 24th, which is the actual induction ceremony, that episode is still TBD. Depending on how I'm feeling, there may or may not be an episode that week. As always, I'll keep you posted on Twitter. Thanks for your understanding. Anyways, if you missed the last episode from last week, you can listen to that episode and previous editions of the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Also, I want to remind you, you can find this show on Twitter. Follow the show on Twitter at DugoutRepPod. That's Dugout, R-E-P, Pod. While you're at it, follow my personal Twitter feed and my Instagram page at AndrewCaruso77. Like I said, my Instagram is, I don't post on Instagram, so it's not worth it to follow me there. So Twitter will be my primary social media page. That's enough social media talk for one day, and we've got a lot to cover, so we can't waste any more time. And with that being said, let's head in the dugout to talk baseball. Our top story of the day is that on Thursday, June 30th, the results of the first phase of voting for the MLB All-Star Game were announced after the voting concluding earlier on that day. During the first phase, every team nominated their starter at each position, and the top 2 vote getters at each position, both the AL and NL, advanced to Phase 2. For outfielders, the top 3 advanced, which, Phase 2 ran from July 5th to July 8th. The results of this phase, as well as voting for the rest of the All-Star roster, will be announced on MLB Network today, July 10th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So by the time you listen to this episode, the results of the rosters may already be announced. But since I record these episodes in advance, the result they haven't been announced as of the time when I'm recording this episode. Something new for this year is that the top overall vote getters in each league bypassed the second round and earned an automatic starting spot. These players were Aaron Judge of the Yankees and Ronald Acuna Jr. of the Braves. This means that they'll both start in the outfield for the American and National League respectively. The other 8 spots in the lineup will be determined by fan voting, as I said earlier. Starting pitchers will be tapped by each league's manager, Dusty Baker for the American League and Brian Snitker for the National League. Reserves for both teams will be selected via player vote and through the commissioner's office, through the office of the commissioner. The actual game is set to be held July 19 at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles, with pregame ceremony starting at 7:30 Eastern Time and first pitch coming just after 8, assuming the league sticks with their traditional ESG schedule. On that note, I wanted to let you all know that I will be hosting a space on my personal Twitter account in conjunction with two guys, Justin Grice and Anthony Jocks. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, boys. I offered to host a space for the All-Star game since those two guys are doing the Derby. So if you guys want to pop in, say hi, watch the All-Star game with me, you're more than welcome to pop into that space. Space will probably start at about 6:30 Eastern Time, just on the day of the All-Star game. Again, that space will be on my personal page at Dugout at Andrew Caruso 77. Now, you're probably wondering, in addition to Acuna and Judge, who are the other finalists in this phase of voting? The finalists are, first we'll go for the American League. The catchers are Alejandro Kirk of the Toronto Blue Jays and Jose Trevino of the Yankees. First base is Ty France of Seattle and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. of Toronto. Second base is Jose Altuve of Houston and Santiago Espinal of Toronto. Third base, Jose Ramirez of Cleveland and Rafael Devers of the Boston Red Sox. Shortstop, Tim Anderson of the White Sox and Bo Bichette of the Toronto Blue Jays. Outfielders are the outfielders in the American League, in addition to Aaron Judge. The guys who are jockeying for the other two spots are Mike Trout of the Angels, Giancarlo Stanton of the Yankees, and George Springer and Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who are both play for the Blue Jays. And for the designated hitter spot in the American League, finalists are Jordan Alvarez of Houston and Shohei Ohtani of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. And now for the National League. Again, catcher Wilson Contreras and Wilson Contreras of the Chicago Cubs and Travis d'Arnaud of the Braves. First base is Peter Wanda of the Mets, Paul Goldschmidt of the Cardinals. Second base is Josh Chisholm of the Miami Marlins and Ozzie Albies of the Atlanta Braves. Third, Manny Machado of the Padres and Nolan Arenado of the Cardinals. Shortstop, Dansby Swanson of Atlanta and Trey Turner of the hometown Dodgers. And the outfielders, in addition to Ronald Acuna, since he already earned the spot, Mookie Betts of the hometown Dodgers, former Dodger outfielder, now with the Giants, Jock Peterson, Adam Duvall of Atlanta, and Starling Marte of the Marlins. And the designated hitter spot in the National League is William Contreras, the brother of Wilson, who plays for the Atlanta Braves, and the perennial All-Star Bryce Harper of Philadelphia. Now, it should be worth noting that both Harper and Albies are out with significant injuries. If either or both of them win a starting spot, then the runner-up for that position will get the nod and a roster replacement will be named. So this means if Harper's elected, William Contreras will start, and if Albies gets elected, Trey Turner will start, with replacement being named for both injured players. While we're on that, pitchers who are named to their league's team but start on the Sunday before the game are still recognized as All-Stars, but similar to the situation above, a replacement is named. Also, on July 5th, Ken Rosenthal of Fox and The Athletic reported that as part of the new union agreement, which was ratified in March, the Commissioner of Baseball now has the authority to name an additional player to each team's roster in recognition of a noteworthy achievement or other contribution. This article published used Albert Pujols of St. Louis and Miguel Cabrera of Detroit as examples. Neither player will go to LA for their on-field performance this year, but being that Miggy got his 3,000th hit and the fact that Albert is retiring at season's end after nearly 2 decades in the game, it makes sense for them to be named. These additions will bring the roster up to 34 players. In the circumstances warrant, the commissioner may name more than one player. Now, I voted for Mice. Now, you're probably wondering who I selected to start, who I think should start the All-Star game. Well, you'll be happy to know that on the first day of fan voting, July 5th, I voted for my selections, and I've voted every day that the fan voting page was open. So, My selections, again, we'll do the American League first and then the National League. My AL selections, catcher, Jose Trevino. First base, Ty France. Second base, Santiago Espinal. Shortstop, Bo Bichette. Third, Jose Ramirez. And then the outfield, in addition to Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, and Mike Trout. And the designated hitter, I chose Shohei Ohtani, the Angels. And now for the National League. Let's see. For a catcher, I chose Wilson Contreras. First base, Pete Alonso. Second base, Jazz Chisholm. Shortstop, Trey Turner. Third base, Manny Machado. Outfield, in addition to Ronald Acuna, who was already nominated, Mookie Betts and Jock Peterson. And the designated hitter, I chose Bryce Harper. Now, I'm not going to go into detail why I chose the players that I did, because it would take ages and I don't want you to fall asleep, but you can probably guess why I chose those guys based on my team preference and other factors. After all, I think should start the big game on the bump. For the AL, I'm going Alex Manoah of the Blue Jays and Tony Gonsolin of the host Dodgers for the National League. Again, I'm making these predictions based on their stats, and both guys are having incredible seasons and deserve to start next week. If you want to see their stats, you can go online and look them up. Now, let me know if you agree with my thoughts. Now it's time to look at the top matchup for the week ahead, July 11th to July 17th. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Next up, I'll preview the top matchups in baseball for the week ahead. For this part, I'll give my top 3 matchups on the schedule this week and explain why I think that series or matchup is a must-watch. First up, we have the series between the Mets and Braves in Atlanta, starting on Monday, July 11th. This is the Mets' first trip to Atlanta this year, and they hold first and second place in the NL East, respectively. Atlanta is 2.5 games back from first. Meanwhile, the Mets are 2-2 versus the Braves this year. This series serves them an opportunity to break the tie before heading to the All-Star break. A rivalry is always good, but heading into the second half, this will be one to watch, as they're both teams with October ambitions. Both teams also have a plethora of stars, although the injury bug has sidelined some of them for big stars for an extended period of time. Should be an interesting series leading off the final week of the first half. Our second must-see series is an interleague series between the Yankees and Reds, commencing on Tuesday night in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium. Unlike the Mets-Braves series, this series features 2 teams at the opposite ends of their respective divisions. This is one of those rare matchups that's only possible through interleague play, so both fan bases should enjoy it. Despite the differences in team chemistry between the two clubs, interesting interleague matchups are always fun and give folks an opportunity to see different players from another league, and especially this year, given how both teams are on different trajectory paths. These factors make this series the top matchup to watch. Matchup this week. Our last series is the Freeway Series. To start off the second half, to kick off the Freeway Series between the Dodgers and Angels from Anaheim to kick off the last weekend in the first half. Sorry about that. Again, another interleague matchup, but this one is a classic rivalry and not as rare as the Yankees-Reds series that I outlined above. Similarly, both teams are on opposite ends of their respective divisions. However, what's different about this series is both teams could be sending a few stars out for the ASG next week. For the Dodgers, Mookie Betts, Trey Turner, Tony Gonsolin, Clayton Kershaw, and Freddie Freeman, just to name a few. For the Angels, obviously Ohtani and Mike Trout, but also maybe a few others. All I'm saying is that both teams are filled with stars, and this should be a prime matchup to watch. Again, another great series here. Let me know if you agree with my picks and if there are any other matchups people should watch watching that I missed during the segment. We'll see how things turn out at week's end. We're getting close to the end of the show, so now it's time for this week's social media segment. That's coming right up, so don't go away. Welcome back. To cap off this week, it's time for the social media segment. Now, as I stated at the beginning of this episode, this week I asked you to submit your thoughts on which team or teams you think are going to be the most active in advance of the trade deadline on August 2nd, and why. Let's dive in. So we've gotten a reply. Sorry if you heard my phone unlocking. We got a reply this week from Malcolm Berry at Sky_Padre, who said the Toronto Blue Jays are going to be active because they need pitching. Now, Malcolm, thank you for your submission to the show. Now, I did some research when I was planning out this show, and I think I have to agree with that. You know, from what I was reading, it seemed like the Jays, they lack the pitching. You know, they have, Gosman, Robbie Ray has been very hit or miss this year, and apparently the bullpen has also been very hit or miss. Obviously, Hyunjin Ryu, he's had Tommy John surgery, so you lost your big free agent signing there from a few years back. So the Toronto Blue Jays need pitching. Yeah, I can agree with that. From the article I read, some targets could be Jose Quintana, Zach Davies, a couple other older veteran guys. Not super old, but older, solid guys who still have enough left in the tank for halfway for half a year. I also think the Yankees will be active at the deadline, finding outfielders because the outfield hasn't been too hot this year. Obviously, we have Stanton and Judge potentially going to the All-Star game, but the other outfielders, Aaron Hicks, Joey Gallo, have been just plain abysmal this year. They performed hit or miss. They performed very hit or miss, and so I see the Yankees going after outfielders and maybe a potential bullpen arm. So potential bullpen arm to bolster the end of the pen, or another rotation arm. So I think, Malcolm, I agree with you, but I also think the Yankees are another team that, I think teams that have October ambitions but are missing the pieces to get there are going to be very active this deadline. So again, thank you, Malcolm, for submitting your submission. Thanks to those of you who missed out on participating this week. Make sure to follow the show on social media so you can participate next time. We've sadly reached the end of the episode, but closing remarks are coming right up. So keep listening and don't go away. Stay tuned. So that concludes the end of episode 9 of the Dugout Report. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. Once again, as a reminder, you can follow the show on Twitter at DugoutRepPod and my personal Twitter page at AndrewCaruso77. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Please share this episode with your friends and on social media. That's it for this week, and so this is your host, Andrew Caruso, signing off. I'll see you next week for the show's Hall of Fame special, and regular content will be back within the next couple weeks. Thanks for listening, and so long, everybody.